An idol group fails to capture hearts despite trying many different concepts.
Their career ends in tatters. The girl with glasses realizes she won a signing spot with a single purchase. He mentions he has something to brag about. She proudly displays her top-ranking exam results, surprising him. She explains she will be unable to visit for some time. He freezes in total shock. He questions her absence, and she reveals she is now a high school senior. She promises to return once she passes her law school entrance exams. He finds relief in her determined promise. She notices his worried expression and feels bad. She finds his disappointed face adorable and notes she still has time before her big test. She suddenly stands up and vows to return immediately after her exams. He reaches out to her. He offers a pinky promise to seal their agreement. He smiles while holding her exam paper as a token of their bond. She blushes intensely at him. She pulls away to avoid getting her nervous, sweaty palms on his hand. The staff calls for the next person as she hurriedly steps away. Wookie tries to delay her departure, but a staff member stops him. A solemn pinky promise made. He offers a gentle smile. She stands alone outside. She remains in dazed disbelief over their brief physical contact. A text from her mother orders her to come home immediately after her classes. She rushes off to avoid getting caught by her parents. She notices a strange vibration as the ground begins to glow purple. A massive beam of light shoots skyward as people flee in terror. A mysterious gate appears. Emergency workers arrive as a swirling portal manifests on the city street. Monstrous creatures emerge from dungeon portals, devastating the surrounding area. A live news broadcast reports on a gate opening in the city. A desperate hand grabs on. The girl with glasses gasps in distress. Sobbing hysterically, she begs the reporter for information on Wookie's safety. He is startled by her. She continues to plead for any news regarding her favorite idol. He tries to calm her and offers a cloth to wipe her face. He prepares for the report. Yoon Se-hyun introduces himself as he begins reporting live. He broadcasts from the disaster site while the girl continues to cry behind him. People in a restaurant recognize Kang Hara on the news and gossip about her breakdown. Her parents destroy her idol belongings in a fit of rage and embarrassment. Her father berates her for being a family disgrace despite her academic success. A harsh ultimatum is given. She cries alone in bed. She resolves to become a law student so she can eventually meet him again with confidence. She imagines a future meeting where she can explain her past behavior. Her quiet sobbing continues. Classmates mock her as Wookie's girl as she walks through the school halls. A video of the famous rookie reporter Yoon Se-hyun receives overwhelming popularity and thousands of adoring comments. In another broadcast, the blonde idol Wookie is revealed to have successfully awakened as a powerful S-rank hunter. As Wookie's fame reaches new heights after his awakening, becoming an S-rank hunter becomes the ultimate dream for money. Years prior, a 17-year-old Kang Hara waits at a specialized clinic to undergo her mandatory awakening suitability test. The receptionist tells her the results will take 2 weeks, while Hara realizes her life is moving toward an uncertain future. A man in a business suit arrives at a residential gate and confirms if he is speaking with Kang Hara. He identifies himself as an official from the Ministry of Defense and asks about her recent national physical test. The man delivers the unexpected news that she has been selected as a candidate for practical safety personnel. He clarifies that the designation means she is officially a candidate for Hunter Awakening.
With a professional demeanor, the official presents her with a brown envelope containing her physical test report.
He instructs her to review the documents and complete her registration as she stares at him in stunned silence. Dizziness overtakes her as she reads the instructions for her immediate mandatory service requirements. The report reveals her measurement grade is an E, formally designating her as a practical safety personnel service candidate. Standing alone in the dim light, she realizes her academic dreams have been replaced by a lowly rank. Her family reacts with absolute shock and loud mockery upon learning she is destined to be a civil servant. Her parents yell at each other and blame her for wasting her private education while she cries in despair. Her brother celebrates dodging his own military service because of her, as her father orders her to shut up. Despite being a disappointment to her family, she notes that being an awakened one still generates income. 10 years pass, and the scene shifts to the imposing headquarters of the Mapo district office. Now an adult, Kang Hara reflects on the difficult financial reality of living as an E-rank citizen. She checks her bank balance on her phone, which shows a meager amount after a decade of working. Distraught over her tiny savings, she considers buying a lottery ticket as a desperate way to change her life. Her coworker Yoo-jung asks what is wrong, and Hara confesses her depression over her empty bank account. Yoo-jung notes that filming in another department has finished and tells Hara to go sit down and prepare. Surprised, Hara questions why she has to be involved when she thought only her senior colleague was being filmed. Yoo-jung looks back with a flat expression and asks her if she really didn't hear the latest news. Yoo-jung explains the crew is doing a sweep of the Mana Stone department, sending Hara into a state of shock. Hara nervously hopes that only the camera crew is coming, but Yoo-jung confirms that isn't the case. Hara's face goes pale as Yoo-jung reveals that the famous anchor Yoon Se-hyun is also coming to their department. Notifications describe Yoon Se-hyun as Korea's most beloved journalist and a highly influential public figure. Visuals recall his heroic rise to fame, from rescuing children at disaster sites to confronting powerful politicians. During a television interview, the host brings up the day of his legendary debut broadcast, and he confirms he remembers it. Se-hyun smiles warmly on the screen as he wonders if the student he met that day is doing well now.
Back at the office, Hara panics while Yoo-jung dismisses her worries, noting that 10 years have surely erased his memory.
Yoo-jung tries to calm her down, but Hara insists that the mere thought of being caught on camera is stressful. Yoo-jung suddenly remembers the crew will also be filming the storage room and asks if Hara organized it this morning. Realizing the storage room is a mess, Hara sprints down the hallway to fix it before the filming begins. Inside the storage room, Hara complains about the filming location while she crouches to organize crates of mana stones. Her attention is taken by a sudden quick clang sounding in the quiet room. She spots a pair of black loafers and dark trousers standing near a shelf and questions who is there. Peering through the metal shelving, she nervously asks the hidden person to identify themselves. Hara falls back in terror with a loud scream as a valuable red stone falls and shatters on the floor. She stares in horror at the broken fragments of what she identifies as a precious A-rank mana stone. A man leads a camera crew into the room, loudly announcing the start of their report on the management department. The entire crew stops and stares at Hara as she sits on the floor next to the pile of shattered red crystal. Hara looks completely bewildered as question marks float around her, realizing she is caught in a disaster. Later, Hara apologizes to Yoo-jung for the delayed shoot, but her colleague insists the visit to the station was fun. Yoo-jung admires her makeup in a mirror while Hara gives a tired thumbs up, still processing the day's events. With a sudden, heavy smack to her back, Yoo-jung tells Hara to stay strong and remember the debts she must pay. Hara is haunted by the massive fine for breaking the A-rank stone as the reality of her new debt sinks in. Distressed over the broken artifact, she thinks that an A-rank mana stone shouldn't shatter in an E-rank's hands and wonders why no one believes her. Yoo-jung leads her toward the filming area while asking for the hunter's office staff, and the girl with glasses follows nervously. The cameraman asks Se-hyun if he is ready for the upcoming broadcast. Standing with her back turned, the girl with glasses confirms she is ready. Yoon Se-hyun looks composed as he announces that preparations are complete. Startled by a sudden movement, the girl with glasses lets out a small yelp. Her foot slips with a sudden, sharp slip sounding, and she cries out in surprise. Yoon Se-hyun catches her firmly, saving her from the fall. Flustered by his touch, she panics while Se-hyun notes he must have startled her and asks if she is hurt. Hiding her face in embarrassment, she stammers that she is perfectly fine. She flees the scene in a frantic rush, leaving a confused chibi-style Se-hyun behind.
Yoon Se-hyun stares after her with a bewildered and speechless expression.
The director calls for the rehearsal to begin, and Se-hyun acknowledges the command. Se-hyun and Yoo-jung sit across from each other on a high-tech studio set. A heavy cart carrying precious blue mana stones stands near the interview area. She watches from the sidelines, desperately hoping he didn't recognize her and wishing she could just stay quiet until it's over. An ominous narration warns that life rarely goes according to plan. Yoo-jung demonstrates how to handle the mana stones for the camera. The cameraman grumbles as the equipment fails to function properly. Yoo-jung turns back with a worried face and calls out to her.
Yoo-jung asks if she could take her place in the demonstration, causing the girl with glasses to freeze.
Shocked by the sudden request, she asks if she truly has to be the one. She waves her hands in protest, but the crew insists they are already behind schedule and she must try. Her vision swirls with dizziness as she realizes she has no choice but to participate. A desperate plea for salvation echoes through a void of shimmering light. A system notification appears before her announcing that a nameless star has heard her words. Reflected in her glasses, the mysterious window leaves her speechless and confused. The studio begins to tremble as someone shouts to find out what is happening. Multiple red alert windows appear, warning of a B-grade gate opening and ordering immediate evacuation while she screams in terror. Chaos erupts in the studio as people realize a gate is manifesting right in front of them. Taking charge, she orders everyone to stop running and take cover under the rift as a hand grabs her shoulder.
Se-hyun tells her that as a hunter, she should also find a safe place to hide.
She stares at him in a moment of stunned silence. Someone yells for Anchor Yoon to look behind him as a dark rift widens. A purple system window confirms that the gate creation is now complete.
A massive swirling portal opens directly behind Sayan as voices scream for him to watch out.
She watches in horror, worrying that he will be caught in the rift and calling out his name. Panicking, she realizes Anchor Yoon is about to be swallowed by the portal. Vowing not to let a civilian get hurt, she reaches out for him with a look of pure determination. His eyes widen in shock as they are both pulled into the abyss. The two are engulfed by the radiant light as they fall through the portal together. Landing in a sun-drenched clearing, she groans in pain from the impact.
She jumps up and tells the annoying system window to shut up as it tries to display a message.
Holding her aching head, she tries to recover from the intense dizziness. Looking around the lush green environment, she realizes they are no longer in the studio. She stands amidst a dense forest, questioning if they have been dragged into a dungeon. A B-grade dungeon window appears, listing the monsters and environment, sending her into a state of disbelief over their situation. She gazes at the information, calling the entire situation absolutely crazy. Seyeon lies unconscious on the grass beside her, bathed in sunlight. She kneels beside his still form, checking for injuries in the middle of the field. She observes the unconscious, athletic Yoon Se-yeon and notes that despite his powerful appearance, he is a mere civilian.
Sunlight filters through the dense forest canopy of the dangerous B-grade gate.
The girl with glasses stares blankly, her mind racing as she recalls her lowly E-grade status. Collapsing onto her knees in despair, she concludes that her current situation is absolutely hopeless. Distracted by a persistent sound, she looks up with an annoyed expression and wonders what has been so noisy. A system window explains the nameless star's confusion regarding her lack of combat training, leading her to realize she is being watched by a constellation. Narration explains that constellations are mysterious beings that appeared alongside the awakened when the gates first emerged. She recalls that meeting the right constellation can instantly elevate a person's rank to S grade. Visuals of a handsome man with reddish blonde hair illustrate how her senior, Kwan-wook, successfully reached S grade through such a divine connection. A chibi-style version of her looks deadpan as the system window asks her to skip the lengthy explanations because it is busy. She reflects on the fact that constellations typically only manifest when their presence is absolutely necessary. A hopeful smile crosses her face as she wonders if she might be the necessary element the star is seeking. Excitedly imagining her future, she celebrates the possibility of undergoing a rare second awakening. She glances back at the unconscious black-haired man lying in the grass.
Her expression shifts to pure horror as she vehemently rejects the idea of him being her boyfriend, labeling him a generator of cringy memories.
The star expresses a sudden interest in her embarrassing past, causing her to scream in a desperate attempt to stop it. Panic ensues as she rants about privacy laws and government permissions while the star continues to browse her personal information. Curled into a ball of shame, she responds to the star's mockery by wishing her life were actually as entertaining as a sitcom. She dismisses the star's comment about Sehan's good looks, insisting she would date literally anyone else in the world before him. Looking away with a blush, she argues that they are practically strangers who don't know each other well at all. The star reacts with visible outrage, causing a sudden, sharp bump sounding that makes her jump and ask what is wrong. Turning her back to the shimmering light, she explains that the daily struggle for survival leaves her with no time for romance.
The star philosophically questions if the cruelty of the world is exactly why one should seek love.
Looking downcast, she points out the harsh financial reality that dating requires money she simply doesn't have. She challenges the constellation to try living on the meager salary of a grade 9 civil servant before judging her lack of a love life. A chibi-style version of her looks dejected as the star clicks its tongue and insults her lack of courage. Despite the insults, she clenches her hand with a sudden, firm squeeze sounding and reminds herself that this is still a rare chance with a constellation. In a moment of high drama, she resolves not to miss this opportunity and jokingly calls for the people of Earth to lend her their energy. Switching to a fawning, desperate smile, she clasps her hands together and tries to flatter the entity while it questions her sudden change in attitude. She pleads with the star to look at her current state, arguing that love cannot overcome the harsh reality of her low specs. She confesses that she would go to any lengths, even visiting the underworld if it meant increasing her rank. Holding up her official ID card, she presents her E-grade status as the ultimate proof of her difficult life. Her nervous smile widens as she notices the star is becoming more agreeable to her plight. She bargains desperately, explaining that she isn't even asking for S rank. She would do anything just to reach A or B rank. With tears in her eyes, she makes a formal plea for the star to officially become her constellation. Deep in prayer, she begs for a second awakening while a massive, celestial hand begins to reach out from the starry void.
Overjoyed and wide-eyed, she shouts her absolute agreement to the star's unspoken proposal. The silhouette of the constellation looms large as a system window indicates it is considering her offer.
Kneeling beside the still sleeping Sehyeon, she begins to confirm her commitment. Her face suddenly pales and a shadow falls over her eyes with a sudden, chilling whoosh sounding as she stops mid-sentence. Light breaks through the trees as the scene shifts slightly. From a distance, she is seen frantically kneeling on the grass and calling for a sudden, desperate pause. With a look of extreme suspicion, she asks if the constellation is actually working for a matchmaking company because of its obsession with her dating life. The star counters by asking if she hasn't had similar romantic interests or hobbies in her own past. She looks back with a completely bewildered and confused expression. Her eyes widen in absolute shock as the star reveals it has found a fan fiction she wrote and posted online years ago. Visions of her romantic writing appear as she flails her arms with a sudden frantic splash sounding and screams at the star for its insanity. Standing up abruptly with a sudden heavy thud sounding, she demands that the star stop its embarrassing exposition immediately. She looks stunned as she processes the sudden appearance of a formal constellation contract.
A purple system window presents a contract offer from the nameless star, promising a massive 5-rank upgrade as a reward for signing. Looking at the system window, the girl with glasses wonders where the letter N went.
She realizes that a 5-rank upgrade would allow her to finally reach the elite S-class status. A look of grim determination settles on her face. She finds it unsettling that the specific conditions for the rank upgrade remain a complete mystery. Desperately hoping for the best, she assumes a proud constellation wouldn't actually demand dating as a condition. Concluding that signing is her only way to survive, her finger hovers over the shimmering screen.
A purple system window confirms that the contract with the constellation is now complete.
In the sunlit clearing, the black-haired Sehyeon begins to stir on the soft grass. Clutching his head in pain, Sehyeon groans about his aching skull as he sits up. Taking in his surroundings, the man looks around with a focused, serious expression.
Sehyeon observes the lush green environment and concludes that they have been dragged into a dungeon.
Rubbing his forehead, he blames the incident on a blatant lack of safety awareness during the studio renovations. He exhales a heavy sigh as he assesses his situation. Looking across the wide clearing, he wonders if he is the only one who was taken. He vividly recalls someone grabbing him right before the portal swept him away from the studio. A vision of the girl with glasses reaching out for him makes him worry for her safety. Sehyeon begins to fix his clothes, looking determined to face whatever challenges the dungeon presents. His hand brushes against the grass as he prepares to stand up.
Straightening his vest and picking up his jacket, he stands tall in the sun-drenched field.
From behind, he hears a rustling sound in the nearby bushes. Snapping his head back with a quick whoosh sounding, he fears a monster is approaching from the trees. Emerging from behind the leaves, the girl with glasses asks if he is finally awake. He approaches her with a series of rhythmic, top-sounding footsteps and asks if she is all right. Sehyeon checks on her condition and she confirms that she is perfectly fine. Looking down at the stains on his pants, she expresses her relief that they both survived the fall. Overcome with guilt, she apologizes for the situation, but he quickly cuts her off. Sehyeon argues that as a hunter, prioritizing the safety of civilians like him is simply her job. Despite her lowly rank, he stands before her and offers his sincere thanks for her attempt to save him. Stunned by his gratitude, she can only respond with a quiet, hesitant confirmation. He insists they should save their thanks for when they actually escape, noting they are still stuck in the dungeon. Recounting his initial search, he explains he hasn't been able to see very far into the dense forest yet. Sehyeon points toward a small gap under a pile of rocks, suggesting it might be a good place to hide.
She agrees with the plan but pauses with a look of sudden hesitation.
Looking slightly embarrassed, she struggles to find the right words to continue the conversation. He asks for her name, leading to a moment of awkward silence between the two. She looks back at him with a confused and puzzled expression. Sehyeon stares at her in shock, wondering if she truly has no idea who he is. Blushing with embarrassment, he realizes that not everyone follows celebrities or television anchors. He introduces himself as Yoon Sehan while reaching out to initiate a formal greeting. She accepts the handshake and formally acknowledges the famous anchor Yim. Sehyun looks at her with intense curiosity and asks for her name in return. Their conversation is interrupted by a sudden, ominous sound in the distance.
A seemingly innocent white rabbit with red eyes watches them from the tall grass.
The rabbit suddenly transforms into a giant, snarling beast with razor-sharp teeth and bloodshot eyes.
Horrified by the sudden mutation, they watch as the massive rabbit lets out a heavy thud sounding as it lands.
Panicked, they turn and bolt as the giant monster begins its aggressive pursuit.
Running for their lives, she identifies the beast as a dangerous D-rank carnivorous rabbit.
He asks if the creature is as strong as a tiger while they dodge the rabbit's heavy thud-sounding stomps. He points toward the opening in the rocks and orders her to run into the cave for shelter.
The ground shakes with a heavy thud sounding as the giant rabbit pounces while they dive toward the safety of the cave.
A sudden, powerful quang-sounding crash echoes as the giant rabbit beast slams its head against the stone barrier.
Inside the dark cave, the black-haired anchor groans in pain as the girl with glasses notices blood soaking through the sleeve of his white shirt.
He dismisses the injury as a minor scratch, but she looks distraught and apologizes for failing to protect him from the beast.
The man reasons that an E-rank hunter like her cannot be expected to easily defeat a D-rank monster.
Dust and small stones fall from the ceiling with a sudden, soft whirr-rook-sounding rattle. The snarling beast shrieks outside while the girl with glasses asks if they have any chance of victory, leaving the man to respond with a grim silence. Savage rabbit beast assaults the cave. Hesitating nervously, she tries to start a conversation while the black-haired man encourages her to speak up.
Looking downcast, she begins her sentence with a quiet admission that there is something she needs to say.
He asks for clarification, wondering if she has finally come up with a plan for their escape. She suddenly introduces herself as Kang Hara, leaving the black-haired man completely stunned and confused.
From his seated position on the grass, he asks what the point of her introduction is while she struggles to find an explanation.
Clenching her sleeve with a sudden, tight squeeze sounding, she laments her own behavior and feels a wave of embarrassment. With tears streaming down her face behind her glasses, she expresses a desperate desire for the earth to swallow her whole.
Girl with glasses stands dejected alone.
She is shocked to discover that her new constellation is actually Cupid, the famous god of love.
A chibi version of her is bewildered, asking why figures from Greek and Roman mythology are suddenly appearing.
A system window conveys Cupid's annoyance at her forgetfulness, prompting her to admit she never expected a god to actually respond.
As the entity laments her lack of gratitude, she decides to check her new system window for any abilities that might be helpful.
Looking at the shimmering interface, she notices something unusual and lets out a curious hum. She is baffled by a list of locked and unlocking S-rank skills, especially when she sees a notification that her contract quest is still in progress. Outraged, she demands to know why she can't use the skills immediately, only for the constellation to mock her for thinking S-rank status comes easily.
The entity sighs about the laziness of the younger generation, leading her to frantically ask what she must do to satisfy the requirements.
She realizes that her awakening depends on a quest involving Yoon Se-yeon, and she nervously begins to read the details of the companion mission.
The purple screen explains that romance begins with exchanging names and suggests building intimacy by using each other's first names. The specific objectives of the quest require her to exchange names and hold hands with the designated user Yoon Se-yeon.
Panic sets in as she reads that failure will trap her in E-rank forever, making the completion of the romantic quest a matter of survival.
Screaming internally, she labels the constellation a total con artist for forcing her into such an embarrassing situation. Returning to the present, she introduced herself as Kang Hara because she felt she had no other choice in this insane scenario.
She worries that her sudden introduction makes her look like a lunatic while the giant rabbit lets out a terrifying shriek.
Blood sprays with a sudden sharp sounding groan as the beast's claws tear into the black-haired man's back.
She catches him in her arms, screaming in horror as she sees the deep, bleeding gashes across his vest. Determination fills her eyes as she realizes she cannot afford to delay her actions any longer.
Gripping his shirt with a sudden, firm squeeze sounding, she resolves to push past her shame for the sake of their lives. Slumped against her shoulder, the dazed man can only let out a weak, confused question. She shouts at him to hurry, insisting that following her lead is their only path to escaping the dungeon alive.
Wounded man looks pale and weak.
A prompt appears on the screen, forcing her to choose between 2 S-rank skills to unlock immediately.
Desperate to save him, she resolves to just pick any high-ranking skill that might help them. She screams the name of the skill while hugging him tightly, and a brilliant, sparkling light erupts as her power activates.
In the peaceful clearing, a small white rabbit watches the distant cave.
In a chibi-style scene, the two characters share an incredibly awkward and silent hug inside the dark cavern.
A system window notifies her that the selected skill is passive and instructs her to choose a different one. Blushing a deep shade of red, she lets out a shocked cry as she realizes the nature of the skill she just tried to use. Fuming with frustration, a chibi version of her screams that the system should have provided that information earlier. With tears of humiliation in her eyes, she hides her face and laments how incredibly embarrassing the situation has become. She wonders what kind of skill would be designated as passive while a new status window appears before her. The window reveals that contact with Yoon Se-hyun grants a massive 30-point boost to her health as part of the passive skill's effect. Seeing her distress, the man asks if something is wrong, and she quickly tries to play it off as nothing. She contemplates her next move while purple energy begins to glow around her hand as she grips his arm. Kanghara suggests they should leave the cave immediately.
Yoon Se-hyun asks if she means a name out.
He reminds her that the monsters are still outside.
Kanghara promises that she will get them out if he trusts her.
The black-haired man remains silent.
Kanghara worries that they will fail if they miss their window.
Watching for a gap, she screams for them to move.
She focuses on her newly acquired flight skill.
Her foot makes a sudden light top sounding as it hits the grass.
Yoon Se-hyun shouts in alarm as the massive rabbit lands with a heavy thud sounding.
Her hands hover above the ground with a purple glow. A system message confirms the skill works as she leaps with a sudden whoosh sounding. Kanghara smiles with Sunwoo Leaf. She launches into the sky with a massive, sudden whoosh-sounding burst of speed.
Yoon Se-hyun stares up in total shock.
Chibi Kanghara flies through space with a sudden whoosh sounding.
Panicked, she yells that she cannot control her flight.
A system notification announces a new title. Chibihara freezes while the system advises her to imagine wings. Glowing white feathers begin to manifest. Large angel wings sprout from her back. Kanghara stabilizes her flight with her wings. Realizing her mistake, she panics about leaving her companion behind with a sudden whoosh sounding. The giant beast leaps with a dull thud sounding toward the wounded man.
She dives down with a sudden whoosh sounding and orders him to take her hand.
The system notes contact with the designated individual. A passive skill boosts her stats upon their physical contact with a sudden sounding groan. The rabbit's jaws snap shut on empty air with a sudden, sharp snap sounding. She apologizes for being so clumsy with her new power. Something startles her as she looks at. A system notice says a feather was lost with a powerful crash sounding. They land safely on a high tree branch. He questions how an E-rank hunter has such a skill. She admits it is a very long story. She explains that she received a special awakening quest while the rabbit falls with a sudden thud sounding.
He notes that their situation has been very strange.
He mentions how she rocketed off like she was aiming for space. Laughing awkwardly, she decides to use her inventory. She floats before him and thanks him for saving her life. He finds the condition of her quest very unusual. She hides the truth about the romantic nature of her mission.
Chibi characters agree that their shared experience makes sense.
They watch the sunset from their safe perch.
Darkness descends as the dungeon begins to change. Predatory beasts emerge while he suggests waiting for help.
She explains that reporters learn about these cycles quickly.
They agree to find a safe zone before Mekgul.
He leans on her as they prepare to move. She floats with her wings and offers to carry him. He sighs and accepts that this is their only option. Kanghara asks the black-haired man if he would like to consider other options, but Yoon Se-yen simply declines her suggestion.
She wonders if he lacks trust in her abilities, leading him to explain that the significant weight difference might be a burden.
In a cute chibi scene, she promises to keep him steady and asks for his permission to proceed with her plan. A sudden, powerful lift-sounding motion occurs as the girl with glasses picks up the man in a princess carry. Shimmering stars and light effects surround their legs as they begin to float high above the grassy hills. Looking concerned, he asks if his weight is proving to be too much for her to handle comfortably.
She gives him a cheerful, confident smile and assures him that carrying his weight is completely effortless for her.
The two share a quiet and intimate moment of eye contact as they drift through the golden sunset sky.
Yoon Se-hyun watches her closely with a serious and contemplative expression while they continue their flight. Kanghara stares back at him with wide eyes while beads of sweat on her face betray her internal nervousness. A chibi version of her asks if the flight feels stable enough, laughing awkwardly as they hover in the air. The black-haired man remains stoic and silent while staring down at the landscape passing far beneath them.
He calls her by her full name, prompting her to quickly invite him to speak up if he feels any discomfort.
He begins to ask a personal question about their history, leaving her visibly startled and confused by the inquiry. He wonders if they have crossed paths somewhere before as they hover together against the fiery evening clouds. His hand loses its grip on her blazer with a sudden, light slip-sounding slide that startles them both. Startled by the sudden, quick-slip-sounding movement, she frantically apologizes while trying to maintain their balance.
Noticing her visible exhaustion, he kindly suggests that they move on and find a place to rest soon.
She lets out a weary sigh of relief, glad that she managed to sidestep his difficult question for the moment. As they glide over the lush forest, he asks if she knows the location of the nearest safe zone.
She confirms she spotted one briefly during her earlier flight and explains their current heading.
A memory shows her flying high above the trees to get a complete view of the surrounding dungeon terrain.
She recalls seeing a massive, ancient tree where a terrifying blackbird monster with red eyes stood guard. Deep within the monster's nest, she remembered seeing several large white eggs resting in a bed of straw. Agreeing with her plan, the wounded man decides they should head toward the habitat immediately.
A desperate cry for help suddenly echoes from a distance, cutting through the quiet evening air. They spot two students waving frantically from the hollow of a massive tree, begging to be saved. Stunned to find young civilians, Yoon Se-yen asks if they are really students trapped in the dungeon.
Kang Hara focuses on her flight and tells him that they are going down to rescue the girls.
Landing softly on the tree branch, she asks the terrified students if both of them are all right.
Crying uncontrollably, they explain they were on a tour when the world suddenly shook and they ended up here.
He tries to comfort the sobbing girls, but one of them tearfully reveals that a third friend is still missing.
They explain that their friend Se-yeon was also caught in the disaster and trapped along with them.
A flashback shows the three friends together, with Se-yeon being the one who stayed calm and found cover.
A sudden, loud Pudyadak-sounding flap of wings startles the girls in the memory of the encounter.
The students recall the horrifying moment a massive eagle-like beast descended and snatched their friend away.
Dark shadows loom over the memory as the girls scream in terror for their lost companion, Seo-yeon.
Back in the present, the two survivors weep over Soyeon's fate as they huddle together in the hollow.
Kang Hara is struck with a sudden, sharp gasp-sounding realization that there is another victim at risk. Yoon Se-yeon returns with a bundle of wood and addresses the hunter as he prepares to settle in for the night.
He offers to build a fire for warmth while commenting on how spacious and secure the safe zone feels. Looking out over the darkening forest, he suggests they hold out here until a rescue team arrives. He observes the two girls huddled together and notes that they are still crying from the traumatic experience.
Kang Hara watches the students with a look of deep sympathy and concern as they struggle to cope.
She feels a heavy weight of responsibility as she watches the girls suffer through their grief and fear. Trying to lighten the heavy mood, she calls out to the kids and tells them to look at her catch. She presents a massive, sparkling slab of meat and brags about catching a monster earlier that day. In a chibi scene, she proudly claims that being a hunter makes such tasks look like a piece of cake. One student wonders if she is an elite A-rank hunter, while the other notes she isn't in her brother's card collection. He calls out the name Heon while the flustered girl tries to avoid the student's question about her rank. The black-haired man suggests that anyone would feel flustered by a sudden school rank question, while the woman with glasses looks surprised. In a chibi scene, she reassures Heon that it is fine to be anxious. She promises to protect the students despite not being an A-rank hunter, while one student mentions the power of B-rank hunters. She tells the students she will show them something else while reaching into her inventory. She presents a glowing light stick, surprising the students. In a chibi scene, she claims the light stick belongs to her cousin and not her. One student worries the item is too small to fight a beast, startling her. She demonstrates how the stick extends, impressing the girls as a system window shows her casting a skill. She notes that the light emitted is unusual for an E-class skill level. She uses the glowing stick to ignite a campfire as the students watch. The wood ignites with a sudden glow as the students cheer in amazement. Yoon Se-yeon thanks her for cheering up the children, and she expresses her relief. He suggests they begin grilling the meat, and she agrees to help him. He grills meat over the open flame, earning praise from the impressed students. The two girls look at each other and admit they have suddenly become very hungry. She feels a sense of relief seeing that the group is doing better. The campfire crackles brightly against the backdrop of the darkening night sky. High above the trees, the four of them sit together around the warm campfire. The two students fall asleep huddled together, exhausted by their traumatic experience. Yoon Se-yeon notes how difficult things must be for the girls despite their attempt to stay brave. He observes that losing a friend is a heavy burden for children their age. He expresses regret that they could have saved the third friend if they had been faster. A flashback shows the two students weeping and asking about Se-yeon's fate. She addresses reporter Yoon and asks if he would be willing to help her while he responds with surprise. She prepares to explain her plan with a look of quiet determination. She announces her intention to go out and look for the missing student Se-yeon. Startled, he asks if she really intends to go out into the dungeon alone. He warns her that it is too dangerous because she is not yet a full S-class hunter, while she smiles calmly. She prepares to reveal more information about her situation. She reviews her system window, noting a new skill reward for completing the quest to hold hands. She analyzes her current skills, identifying tools for information and movement.
She focuses on the final unlockable skill titled Multiply.
She recalls the term from fanfiction and begins to form a misunderstanding about its effect.
She panics, imagining the skill forces monsters to mate, and cries out with a sudden, sharp scream, sounding that she refuses to see such a thing. Her face flushes with embarrassment as she worries the skill is for reproduction.
The system corrects her, explaining the skill actually multiplies her power for a limited time.
She realizes it is a buff skill, while a constellation chuckles heartily at her mistake.
Back in the forest, she explains how she got the skill and insists she will be safe.
He remains skeptical about the danger of her going alone. She notes that she saw the boss monster go on patrol, meaning its nest is currently empty and safe to search.
She acknowledges that her plan might seem reckless to him.
She expresses a firm desire to do everything in her power to help.
He watches her in silence, considering her resolve.
He wonders if she truly lacks any fear of the dungeon at night.
He watches her closely with a serious and contemplative gaze.
A memory of a fiery destruction shows him wishing he had been as mature as she is now.
He agrees to stay and protect the children, asking her to return as quickly as possible while she agrees.
She trips as she begins to move, prompting him to ask if she is all right.
She asks if he would mind taking off his shoe for a moment, surprising him.
He is confused by her request but agrees to comply.
Kanghara is mortified to discover a sudden, quick slip-sounding hole in the toe of her sock as she looks down.
Kneeling before her, the black-haired man gently slips his own shoe onto her foot and tells her that this should help a little.
Yoon Se-yeon looks up with her kind, reassuring gaze and tells her not to worry about things here and to be careful on her way. Her face flushes a deep red as a constellation window appears, showing that constellation Cupid is clapping and chanting for them to kiss, while she lets out a soft, embarrassed gasp. Her eyes widen behind her glasses as she breaks into a nervous sweat, overwhelmed by the romantic pressure from the constellation.
She quickly takes flight with a sudden, loud, Seung-sounding burst of speed, shouting back to him that she will be back soon.
High above the dark, quiet forest, a sudden, piercing screech echoes through the night sky.
Frantic and embarrassed, she wonders if a humiliation star is in her fortune and rants about why her sock had to have a hole in it.
She easily defeats a charging monster with a sudden, sharp thrust-sounding strike, wondering if her S-class skills will lead to a change in her civil servant rank. Her eyes sparkle with a look of intense longing as she considers the possibilities for her future.
A large notification window boldly declares her dream that she can finally live independently.
A happy memory shows her waving goodbye to her parents as she moves out of their home, surrounded by festive confetti and a banner celebrating her independence.
Reaching the location, she tightens her grip on her glowing light stick and gives herself a small, determined nod.
With her large white wings spread wide, she prepares to descend into the trees while promising herself that she will return safely no matter what.
A system notification warns her that she has entered the territory of the field boss, George, but notes the beast is currently absent, which she confirms as she cautiously walks through the woods.
She feels a sudden, heavy yuck-sounding pressure as a special effect activates, but a notification confirms that she has overcome the boss's intimidation through sheer grit. In a chibi scene, she looks confused as a notification warns her that power is surging through the area. She glances around with a sudden, quick, Daribion-sounding look, wondering if the strange feeling is an effect of her multiply skill.
A sudden, sharp, Humchit-sounding startle causes her to freeze and listen intently to the surrounding darkness.
She turns her head sharply toward a nearby tree, certain that she just heard a distinct sound echoing nearby.
She hears a child's desperate cry for their mother coming from above and immediately realizes the source of the noise.
She lands softly in the massive nest with a sudden, light, yuck-sounding movement, discovering the missing red-haired student crying on the floor.
The weeping girl looks up at her with tear-filled eyes and asks in a trembling voice who she is. Kanghara holds up her official ID and recites her long, formal title as a civil servant while Constellation Cupid sneers, wondering if a child could even understand such jargon. She floats toward the girl and identifies her as Se-yeon, explaining that her friends sent her to bring the student back to safety.
Se-yeon collapses into her arms, sobbing about how scared she was, while the hunter holds her close and promises to protect her like a big sister.
Looking up at the birds circling in the dark sky, the terrified girl asks if they can leave now, and the hunter warmly reassures her that they can.
As they begin to move across the straw-covered nest, the black-haired woman tells the student that she will take her to a safe zone first.
She stops suddenly as something catches her eye, letting out a confused sound as she notices a bright, banjack-sounding glow. The two of them stand before a cluster of large blue eggs, while a sudden, distant screech sounding echoes through the air.
A system window identifies a glowing white egg as the dungeon's magic core and explains that destroying it will clear the entire dungeon.
Looking at the core with a serious expression, she realizes that breaking the egg is their ticket out of the dungeon. Recalling how easily she handled previous beasts, she reasons that her doubled power should make it possible to destroy the high-grade core.
She grips her glowing stick with a firm, determined look and tells herself that it is time to act.
The feathers around them swirl as a notification warns that the wind direction is changing, causing her to glance back with a sudden, sharp, wheck-sounding look of alarm.
3 bright red warning windows suddenly appear, signaling an immediate and grave danger.
A notification window alerts her that the boss monster, George, has noticed an anomaly in its territory.
A sudden, loud ka-ack-sounding screech of a bird rings out as a system window confirms that George has identified her exact location. A dire warning notification flashes, stating that the monster is now approaching her immediate vicinity.
Soyoyan lets out a terrified scream as a massive shadow looms over them, while a notification warns that George is closing in on the user. Startled by the monster's rapid return, she pulls the sobbing girl closer as Seon begs to be saved. She raises her glowing light stick, realizing that she must destroy the magic core immediately to end the threat. With a sudden, powerful Huichang-sounding swing, she strikes the core, causing a massive and violent Kwang-sounding explosion that shatters the egg. She looks on with a wide-eyed expression of shock as the impact of the destruction ripples through the air. System windows confirm the egg's destruction and award her a new title. But a red notification warns that George has become completely enraged as a massive pressure surrounds them.
A final warning window appears, announcing that the boss monster's movement speed has increased significantly.
Carrying the terrified student in her arms, she takes flight and shouts for her not to worry because the safe zone is close by.
She flies through the night sky with a look of intense focus, promising to get the girl to safety no matter what.
She tells herself that they just need to reach the safe zone and hold out until the rest of the rescue team arrives. Her face pales as a massive shadow falls over them, and a system window announces that the monster has spotted them mid-flight.
Standing within the glowing barrier, the black-haired man and the 2 students look relieved to have reached safety.
Their relief turns to immediate shock as a red system window warns that the safe zone has suddenly vanished. High above the forest, the black-haired hunter calls down to the reporter as she carries the red-haired girl to safety. A sudden, loud cock-sounding screech echoes from above as the blonde student looks up in terror. Spinning around with a sudden, sharp wheck-sounding turn, Yoon Se-yeon shouts a desperate warning to look out behind. A monstrous black panther with glowing red eyes lunges toward them with a sudden, deep, ruro-sounding growl. The black-haired man shields the children as a sudden, wet, chack-sounding spray of blood erupts from his back.
Wiping blood from his face, he asks the terrified children if they are unharmed. Landing beside them, Kang Hara looks over her shoulder and asks if everyone is all right.
Yoon Se-yeon looks up with a pained expression and asks the hunter if she is okay, while the blonde girl cries out for Seon.
Landing softly, the black-haired woman reunites the red-haired girl with her friends and confirms that she is safe.
As birds circle the dark forest with a sudden, sharp cock-oak-sounding cry, she notes that the boss monster has targeted her.
The black-haired man resolves to lure George away and protect the students, telling her to focus on herself.
He urges her to be careful and not worry about them as she prepares to take flight with a sudden, soft Pudadak-sounding flap.
She rockets into the night sky with a sudden, powerful Siwang-sounding burst of speed. She acknowledges that once her position is revealed, she has no choice but to face the boss monster head-on. A system window notes that she is still only a half S-class hunter. She worries that she cannot rely on the reporter's stat-boosting skills this time.
Alone in the dark, she grips her glowing stick with a look of grim determination.
She tells herself that retreating is not an option when other lives are at stake.
A pink window appears as Constellation Cupid mentions the power of love, leaving the hunter feeling annoyed and incredulous.
She turns her head with a sudden, sharp wheck-sounding glance, focusing on the approaching threat.
George, a massive blackbird with 4 red eyes, dives from the sky with a sudden, deafening, keying-sounding screech.
The monstrous bird opens its beak wide with a sudden, terrifying ka-ah-sounding scream as it closes in.
Flapping her wings with a sudden, loud Puliak-sounding beat, she maneuvers through the air to face the beast. The boss monster dives past her with a sudden, heavy, shook-sounding rush of wind.
The hunter's determined reflection is visible in the monster's glowing red eye.
Gripping her weapon, she prepares her strike with a sudden, quiet T-talk-sounding snap of focus. She crashes into the beast with a sudden, violent quang-sounding impact that shatters the darkness. Gritting her teeth, she shouts her resolve to survive this encounter no matter what.
A system notification announces that she is casting her candlelight skill with an S-rank potency.
A blinding beam of pure white light erupts with a sudden, roaring, qua-sounding explosion.
Red warning windows flash repeatedly as her magic power decreases rapidly, causing her to let out a pained groan.
A final warning window appears, stating that her skill has been halted due to insufficient magic power.
Drained of energy, she falls from the sky with a sudden, rapid, suang-sounding descent. A glowing purple window celebrates the defeat of the field boss, George.
The massive black bird lies dead on the forest floor as the hunter lands nearby, panting with exhaustion.
Notifications announce a new achievement and award her the title of being on the constellation side.
Another system window confirms that she has acquired the special berserker status. She stares ahead with wide, glassy eyes, her body trembling from the strain of the battle.
Her vision blurs and she begins to collapse as the world fades to white.
Outside the dungeon, a large crowd of frantic parents gathers at a tall skyscraper, demanding that their children be saved.
A man in a suit tries to calm the worried guardians by assuring them the Hunter Association is investigating.
The branch head sighs in frustration as her phone call goes unanswered once again.
A caption identifies the black-haired woman as Jung Yoo-jin, the head of the Mapo Branch Hunter Association.
She irritably asks for the whereabouts of Gun-wook, learning that he left the Sangam district earlier.
She turns with a sudden, sharp hwek-sounding look as a staff member announces that the person has arrived.
A man with light brown hair and a black jacket walks in with a smirk, while the branch head demands he prepare for the dungeon.
He dismissively remarks that the situation isn't important enough for the news, fueling her growing rage. She points out the severity of the Yoido gate burst and missing persons, but he remains casually indifferent.
Gun-wook makes a cynical remark about the media's lack of interest in the crisis. Startled by the news, Jung Yoo-jin reacts with a look of pure shock. Her eyes widen as she hears a sudden, high-pitched ding-sounding notification.
Gasping at the screen, she sees a system window announcing the successful dungeon clear. Everyone in the vicinity is stunned into silence by the unexpected turn of events.
The association's branch head stares ahead with a look of disbelief. A new director arrives on the scene as staff members shout for his attention. Lee Eun-ju asks for the identity of the missing Mapo branch employee and learns it is Kang Hara.
He contemplates the birth of a potential superstar as he reflects on her low rank.
Rescuers gather around the ambulances as chaos continues at the site.
Someone approaches the scene with a sudden low jing-sounding movement.
Medical staff shout the news that survivors have finally emerged from the gate.
Yoon Se-yeon and the three students stand together under the bright lights of the rescue team.
The reporter confirms that he is unharmed while medics attend to the students.
A rescue worker urges him to wear a mask and asks if everyone has been accounted for.
The team notes that only the anchor and students have been recovered so far.
Yoon Se-yeon worries about the hunter who risked herself to lure the boss monster away. He feels a sudden, heavy Kung-sounding dread as he looks back at the gate.
He recalls a traumatic past experience involving a fire and a reaching hand. Medics announce that another survivor has been found as they pull him back to reality.
Rescuers rush forward with a sudden, quick Sewick-sounding dash toward the gate.
The medical team immediately begins checking the unconscious woman's breathing and pulse. Kang Hara begins to cough as rescuers confirm she is alive and stable.
The reporter's back is visible, showing the deep, bloody gashes from the monster's claws. A medic assists the injured man and praises his breathing rhythm. The reporter reflects on the terrifying moments when survival seemed impossible.
He acknowledges that everyone was saved thanks to the hunter's bravery.
Watching her sleep on a stretcher, he resolves to thank her personally.
A few days pass before the scene shifts to the Hunter Bureau building. A formal meeting is called to order within the government facility.
Officials review the rapid internal clearance of the B-rank gate at the broadcasting station. The presenter confirms that the civilians rescued were all unawakened at the time.
The team suspects Kang Hara has undergone a secondary awakening and asks for her presence.
Jung Yoo-jin slams the desk with a sudden, sharp talk-sounding strike while being accused of lying about the hunter's location.
Yoon Hyun-dong shouts his suspicion that the association is hiding the hunter's true status.
She clenches her fist with a sudden, tight, quack-sounding grip under the table.
Losing her patience, she demands an immediate adjournment and suspends the meeting. She furiously defends the hunter's medical state against the other director's accusations.
Staff members protest the sudden ending of the session as tensions rise.
The two officials engage in a heated argument over their respective ranks and promotion history.
A voice from the table suggests that ability, not maternity leave, was the reason for being passed over.
Jung Yoo-jin grabs her microphone with a sudden, loud pweek-sounding feedback as she yells back.
The director watches the bickering staff with a look of mild amusement from behind. Lee In-ju silences the group and notes that they are all far too worked up.
Jung Yoo-jin tries to justify her anger by citing 3 days of constant criticism.
Yoon Hyun-dong sheepishly reveals his low-class standing to the room.
Lee Eun-ju asserts his authority by revealing his high rank and demanding silence.
Jung Yoo-jin lowers her head and offers a quiet apology for her outburst.
A report confirms that the surviving middle school students have received their compensation.
Yoon Se-yeon rests in a hospital room as he recovers from the dungeon's events.
The black-haired man confirms a report that a survivor has refused the government's official compensation payment.
An older gray-haired official asks if the person in question is the son of Congressman Yoon Soon-hyun.
Against a fiery backdrop, a shadow director notes that the congressman has long sought to privatize the bureau and will surely use this incident as a political weapon. The black-haired man reflects that Yoon Se-yeon has always held opposing views to his father, though he wonders if the trauma of the dungeon changed him.
The director urges his team to hold a press briefing and close the case immediately while a staff member calls out for his attention. A superior official asks Chief Yoon if he is prepared to take responsibility if the public controversy surrounding the bureau continues to worsen.
He sits in tense, sweating silence.
Jung Yoo-jin concludes the meeting and orders the staff to adjourn for the day. The gray-haired official stops her to mention one final critical piece of business. He warns that they cannot keep the hunter hidden indefinitely and demands that Kang-hara return to active duty soon.
A tall white hospital building stands prominently. Outside room 301, a voice complains that the patient is sometimes far too slow for her own good.
Peeling an apple, Jung Yoo-jin scolds her daughter for charging into a dangerous gate instead of avoiding it like a normal person.
Resting in bed, the black-haired hunter smiles and insists that she is perfectly fine and won't quit her job over a fake illness.
Her mother continues to worry about unknown after effects, while the hunter privately scoffs at the exaggerated concern. Jung Yoo-jin wonders aloud why the ungrateful anchor hasn't even bothered to show up and thank his rescuer.
The hunter points out that the man is also a patient, but her mother insists she would have visited him even in a hospital gown.
As the mother calls her daughter too soft, the black-haired man enters the room and offers a polite apology for the interruption.
He enters the room with gifts. He smiles warmly at the hunter.
Jung Yoo-jin is taken aback by the sudden appearance of the famous anchor Yoon Se-yeon.
He explains that he was only just discharged yesterday, while the hunter hides her face in the blanket out of sheer embarrassment.
He offers a gift basket as thanks for her bravery, which her mother accepts with a sudden, quick, quack-sounding grab.
The hunter asks about the safety of the students, and the anchor confirms that every one of them has fully recovered.
Her mother interjects that her daughter still needs extensive testing because the dungeon's effects are far more serious than they look.
Jung Yoo-jin tells her daughter not to worry while the hunter grows increasingly suspicious of her mother's theatrical behavior.
The hunter asks her mother to leave them alone for a moment, and Jung Yoo-jin jokingly suggests it will be easier for them to talk privately.
Her mother encourages them to have a heart-to-heart conversation as she steps out and closes the door. Left alone with the man, the hunter lets out a long, weary sigh while he looks on with concern.
The anchor asks if she feels uncomfortable and takes the blame for the awkwardness of the situation.
She realizes that he was genuinely worried about her when he expresses regret for not visiting her even sooner. He offers her a cup of coffee that he brought along for their meeting.
She takes the cup with a polite thanks, noting the sudden, pleasant warmth through the cardboard sleeve.
Despite being a dedicated lover of ice-cold coffee, she hesitates to mention her preference while looking at the hot steam.
The anchor realizes his mistake with a sudden, wide-eyed look of quiet embarrassment.
She quickly thanks him for being so thoughtful and smiles brightly as she accepts the drink.
She invites the man to take a seat and relax during his visit.
He acknowledges her request and prepares to sit in the armchair beside the bed.
He sits down to enjoy coffee.
As she takes a sudden, quick, jock-sounding sip, she notices his hesitant expression and asks if there is something he needs to say.
A heavy, expectant silence falls over the hospital room. She nervously wonders how much he has already discovered about the strange nature of her recent awakening.
She reflects on the absolute absurdity of a system quest that requires her to date the anchor to complete her rank up.
Jung Yoo-jin explains that they must delay any public announcement regarding the hunter's new status for the time being. The hunter asks if such a delay is truly acceptable, and her mother confirms it is an unavoidable necessity. Her mother warns that the media frenzy would be massive and the association would force her into S-rank dungeons before she is ready. The hunter admits that entering an S-rank gate with her current level of skill would be absolutely impossible. Jung Yoo-jin warns that if the secret gets out, the entire nation might try to matchmake her with the anchor to force her awakening.
The black-haired woman shouts her refusal, declaring that such a scandalous outcome simply cannot be allowed to happen.
Her mother sternly tells her that she must keep her mouth shut and maintain the secret at all costs. The black-haired woman sips her coffee and realizes she may have spoken too soon. Sitting across from her, the black-haired man wonders if he should reveal what he knows to the person involved.
A sudden, sharp, talk-sounding tick comes from the clock as a heavy silence fills the room.
Looking frustrated, she decides she must take the initiative and ask him herself.
She sets her drink down with a sudden, sharp, tack-sounding clatter on the side table.
They both shout out to each other at the exact same moment, surprising one another.
After a brief and awkward pause, they agree that he will speak first.
The anchor mentions a secret investigation that took place immediately after his discharge yesterday.
He reveals that the police chief requested he keep the details of the dungeon experience confidential.
She's internally panicked, realizing the authorities have already discussed her true awakening status with him.
She tries to act casual while secretly hoping the public remains unaware of her secret rank.
A floating system notification encourages her to remain silent and listen for now.
He confirms that he followed instructions and didn't mention her specific actions inside the gate.
He notes that as a result of his silence, he has mistakenly received all the credit for the rescue.
A flashback shows the anchor being overwhelmed by the grateful parents of the rescued children.
He points out the fruit baskets sent by the families as a token of their gratitude.
He shakes his head and asserts that the hunter was the one who truly deserved the praise.
She smiles warmly and insists she was only fulfilling her duties as a professional.
He expresses his desire to reward her personally, causing her to react with shock. He tries to clarify his intent while she firmly rejects any special treatment from him. She jokes that accepting such a reward might be seen as a violation of anti-bribery laws. He offers his business card instead and promises to help her whenever she needs it. He holds out the card and pledges his full support for any future needs she may have.
Looking at the card, she realizes there is actually a specific favor she needs help with.
She contemplates her system quest and hopes his good nature will work in her favor. She starts to speak, catching his attention with a serious expression.
He stands tall by the hospital bed and listens intently to her upcoming request.
A look of quiet surprise crosses his face as he waits for her to continue. With a sudden, quick, whack-sounding snap, she pulls back in deep embarrassment.
She berates herself internally for making such a massive social blunder.
A long, tense silence hangs between them in the hospital room.
Desperate to salvage the moment, she frantically searches for a way to fix her mistake. A sudden, sharp ding-sounding system alert pops up as she struggles to find the right words.
He smiles gently and expresses his relief that everything seems to be settled between them.
She watches him from the bed, still appearing bewildered by the quick turn of events.
Her eyes widen in confusion as she tries to process the meaning of his words. She blushes as they joke about his relationship status and her own charm. He touches her hand briefly and admits he wouldn't have teased her if he were actually available.
He announces his departure, citing other urgent business he must attend to immediately.
He waves goodbye with a sudden, quick sack-sounding motion as he leaves her alone. Left by herself, her expression turns to one of pure frustration and regret. She yells at the system to change her quest target while the constellation remains stubbornly optimistic. She kicks at the air with a sudden, sharp, bong-sounding strike of annoyance. Collapsing onto the bed, she laments her bad luck as the system questions her change of heart.
Tears well in her eyes as she wallows in her own embarrassment and failure.
She recalls being scolded by her mother for her low rank and lack of financial success. She remembers that she still has valuable loot collected from the dungeon boss. She activates her inventory, causing a glowing window to appear before her eyes. A screen lists several B-rank monster cores and parts worth a massive fortune. She realizes her official E-rank status makes it impossible to sell these items legally.
Looking frustrated, she wonders if she should sell her items to a health tonic shop instead.
She decides to sell the monster's feathers and beak to a tonic shop. Pulling out a glowing orb, she wonders what to do with this specific item.
She decides the item is far too valuable to sell to a tonic shop.
She contemplates the idea of eating the powerful dungeon loot herself. She reacts with a sudden, sharp ding-sounding notification on her phone. The message from Chief Jung Yoo-jin orders her to report to work tomorrow morning. She begs the system to let her skip work while it reminds her of her empty bank account. The Mapo District building stands prominently under the sky. The secretary asks if she has any sense at all while entering the office.
Jung Yoo-jin scolds her for walking through the front gate just to get caught by coworkers.
A memory shows colleagues swarming her with questions about her second awakening and the dungeon. Jung Yoo-jin asks what would have happened if she hadn't sent her secretary to rescue her. She admits that she didn't expect to receive so much attention from the staff. Jung Yoo-jin notes that an E-rank hunter surviving a B-rank dungeon would naturally be a sensation. Jung Yoo-jin ends the talk and suggests they review her current skills immediately. She confirms that her S-rank skill only activates when Yoon Se-yeon is nearby. Jung Yoo-jin asks her what skills she can actually use right now on her own. She declares that she will show her mother exactly what she is capable of doing.
Jung Yoo-jin points at her weapon and asks about the purpose of the flimsy stick.
She tells her mother not to call it flimsy because her fans custom-made it for her. She activates the weapon, causing a sudden, quick, jangling-sounding beam of purple light to extend. She explains that she can adjust the thickness and tested it thoroughly inside the dungeon. She admits that without a conduit, she cannot activate her light-based skills due to a lack of imagination.
Jung Yoo-jin says she knows someone who is an expert in that area and offers to ask him.
An intercom announcement informs the chief that Mr. Gun-wook has arrived for his meeting.
Jung Yoo-jin says the timing is perfect and orders him to be sent into the office.
She is shocked and wonders why Hunter Gun-wook is appearing so suddenly.
The tall, blonde man enters the room with a cheerful greeting for everyone.
Jung Yoo-jin calls him a punk while he complains about her constant use of the nickname.
She yells at the chief for not warning her about the famous Hunter's visit. She reflects on her past as his dedicated fan who spent years watching his videos online.
Jung Yoo-jin tells her that she and Gun-wook will be working together frequently from now on.
She is stunned by a sudden, sharp, Jirik-sounding shock as she is assigned to his team.
She shouts in disbelief at the sudden change in her work assignment.
Jung Yoo-jin insists that he is the only person she can entrust with her daughter's current problem.
She notes that although he looks like a thug, his skills are truly exceptional and will help her.
She questions if his team isn't already too busy clearing the Sangam dungeon. Jung Yoo-jin dismisses their concerns and announces she must leave for another important meeting. They walk out together with a sudden, sharp, tack-sounding closure of the bar.
She worries about making him busier, but he reassures her that taking care of her is his job.
She tells herself that it has been 10 years and there is no way he would remember her.
He tells her that he will go wait in the parking lot first.
The black-haired woman looks away thoughtfully.
She stops and looks back as he speaks to her once more. He smiles and brings up her first-grade results from a past mock exam.
She is completely shocked that he actually remembers her after all this time.
He crosses his arms and confirms with a confident smile that he certainly does.
He recalls her as the only fan who ever cried for his safety in a video.
He laughs as she groans in shame, while nearby staff members recognize the famous Hunter.
The blonde-haired man suspects that the rumors about a second awakening at the station are related to her recent experience. He suggests they discuss the matter further while they are on the move, and she nervously agrees to follow him.
While walking through the parking lot, he mentions that he never imagined they would reunite under such circumstances. The black-haired woman is visibly touched and surprised that her idol actually remembered her after all this time. He invites her to get into his sleek black car, which is sparkling as they approach it.
Once seated inside, she is immediately impressed by the high-quality interior of the luxury vehicle.
She is shocked to see the typically stern security guard greeting the famous Hunter with a warm and friendly smile. Looking at his hand on the seat, she notices that his watch and accessories are all from expensive luxury brands. Her heart races as he suddenly leans in very close to her, causing her to blush in confusion.
He calmly clarifies that he only intended to remind her that she should fasten her seatbelt.
Blushing intensely from the close encounter, she stammers out a quick thank you to him. She tugs on the seatbelt and comments on its sturdiness, which he points out is a standard feature for safety.
He tells her it is time to depart, while she continues to look flustered beside him.
She hides her face in her hands and mentally scolds herself for acting so stupidly in front of him.
He focuses on driving with a calm and confident expression, seemingly unbothered by her awkwardness.
They arrive at the team's office, which is a spacious and modern conference room.
She asks why no one else is around, and he explains that the rest of the team is resting thanks to her efforts at the gate.
He suggests they sit down and formally begin discussing the specific nature of her skills.
She reaches into her bag and presents a notebook where she has meticulously organized her skills in advance.
He praises her for being so thorough, while she jokingly attributes it to her perfectionist personality. He reviews her notes and summarizes that while her skills are S-class, her rank remains E, and she requires specific help to grow. She looks slightly discouraged when he labels her current status as being a half-baked S-class hunter.
She wonders if he also dealt with similar conditions when his own powers first manifested.
He playfully suggests she call him her older brother, but she immediately and flatly declines the offer.
He predicts that once they begin working together more frequently, she will be calling him by the familiar term in no time.
She is internally amazed by his charisma while he begins to explain that his own constellation isn't particularly special.
A flashback shows a younger version of him trapped inside a dark stone dungeon where his team faced a dire situation. He explains that 4 of their members were pulled into the gate and unfortunately 2 of them died during the ordeal.
The flashback continues with the survivors desperately trying to escape as the dungeon begins to collapse around them.
A giant cosmic hand reaches through a rift in the ceiling with a sudden, sharp, whack-sounding surge of power.
He shouts in alarm as he pulls his younger teammate away from a massive strike of energy. A blinding pillar of golden light erupts from the floor with a sudden, sharp, pwah-sounding explosion.
He reveals that he met the Twinkling Fairy and awakened as an S-class, though Hara recognizes the name as an alias.
He explains that since constellation names are not public, they are usually called by names that fit their specific characteristics.
He asks her what her own specific traits are, which causes her to jump in surprise.
She blushes as she confesses that her traits are rooted in her past as a dedicated idol fan. He notes that her skill names make sense now and finds one particularly useful for forcing movement during dungeon escapes. He points to a skill called birthday hashtag in her notes and asks what its purpose and usage requirements are. He encourages her to try the C-class skill on him to test its effects, despite her concerns about it being dangerous.
She shouts out his birth date, March 6th, as she attempts to activate the ability on him. Her eyes widen in shock as a sudden, sharp ding-sounding notification window pops up in her vision.
He looks at her curiously and asks if anything changed, as he doesn't feel any immediate difference.
A translucent status screen reflected in her glasses shows a detailed breakdown of his personal statistics.
She realizes with shock that she is now able to see all of Hunter Gunwook's private status information.
The screen lists his high stats and a powerful SSS rank skill called Make-A-Wish, along with a specific trait.
He is intrigued and asks if she can truly see his status, while she realizes she can see his items as well.
She confirms that her new site includes his skill details and his current item information. He hands her the notebook and asks her to write down exactly what she sees on his status screen.
She begins to write nervously, feeling as though she is peeking at something she shouldn't be seeing.
She informs him that she has finished the notes, but mentions that his trait called Merciless Prayer caught her attention.
The blonde-haired man questions if she is truly merciless.
She is stunned while reviewing his impressive statistics.
He warns her to keep her new ability hidden, prompting her to ask about its potential danger.
He explains that knowing an opponent's every secret would have a massive strategic impact.
He notes that identifying monster weaknesses so easily would make clearing dungeons trivial and put her in constant danger from others.
The blonde-haired man begins to ask a question. He asks if she has considered joining his team on a permanent basis.
The black-haired woman remains silent and thoughtful. She expresses deep doubt about whether her current skills are sufficient to join such an elite team.
He reassures her that they can discuss it later and she shouldn't feel pressured to decide immediately. He tells her to take her time while she exhales a quiet, hue-sounding breath of relief.
She wonders if his kindness is a response to her obvious discomfort. While a system notification conveys a jealous protest from her constellation, she tells him not to mock her sincere devotion as a fan.
He suddenly asks if she can demonstrate her candle skill, catching her off guard.
She explains the need for a physical medium, and he suggests using a simple stick as a substitute.
He tells her to wait a moment while his footsteps make a steady Tiobiok-sounding rhythm.
He searches a nearby storage cabinet, mentioned that he might find something useful for her inside. She watches him with a curious expression. He returns with a long rod, explaining it was originally a costume piece belonging to a teammate. He hands her the item and suggests they test its compatibility with her power. She activates the device, causing a sudden, bright Jing-sounding beam of purple light to flare out as he applauds.
He gives her a thumbs up and a compliment, while she finds his newfound expressiveness quite startling compared to his past public image.
He offers to commission a custom tool for her, but she asks if she can simply keep the current one.
He warns her that the original owner is a devoted collector who would be furious if someone used his property.
She reacts with wide-eyed shock.
She quickly understands the sentiment, admitting she would also be upset if someone touched her own precious merchandise.
He explains that utilizing official government channels is difficult due to the confidential nature of her skills.
He worries about the difficulty of sourcing rare materials, but she surprises him by revealing she already possesses them.
The blonde-haired man looks completely surprised.
He mutters in disbelief at her preparation. She presents a pile of sharp monster parts from her back, explaining she collected them just in case they were useful.
He praises her thoroughness while she reveals that she also has a high-grade mana stone to contribute.
He notes that her stone is far more valuable than what is required for the project.
He ponders what to do with the excess stone.
He offers to purchase the valuable mana stone from her directly, leaving her confused.
He begins searching through a secure drawer, insisting he can provide the payment immediately. He mentions he was currently in need of extra stones, making her offer perfectly timed.
He places massive stacks of cash on the table and quotes a price of 300 million won, leaving her speechless.
He clarifies the price per stone for the unofficial transaction, while she stammers in shock at the astronomical sum.
He explains the need for a cash transaction to bypass strict official monitoring, causing her head to spin in a confused pingle-sounding daze. She nervously questions the legality of the deal, but he casually remarks that running a team involves some bending of the rules.
She expresses concern over the shady nature of the deal, but he reassures her that she will get used to such things in the future. He offers to postpone the purchase if the situation makes her feel too uncomfortable.
Large stacks of high-value bills sit on the desk. She points out that those funds are supposed to be for her own equipment.
He explains that the materials can serve multiple purposes, but he has another reason for the offer.
He leans in close and looks at her with a warm smile. He tells her that he truly admires her dedication and preparation.
Her face turns bright red as she reacts with wide-eyed shock at his sudden praise.
Flustered and blushing intensely, she stammers her agreement to the deal for the time being.
The black-haired woman expresses concern about being unable to repay him since she hasn't reached S-class yet. The blonde-haired man asks if dating Yoon Se-hyun is truly the requirement for her to reach S-class, which she confirms.
The blonde-haired man looks on with a self-assured smile and crossed arms. The scene shifts to the black-haired man in a suit who reflects on feeling disoriented during his first day back from sick leave.
His thoughts are interrupted by a sudden, sharp, jangling-sounding vibration from his pocket.
He checks his phone to see an incoming call from Assembly member Yoon and wonders if it is his father calling. He assumes the call is likely regarding something trivial as he walks through the office building.
A man with light-colored hair notices him and notes his return to the workplace.
The light-haired man offers a friendly greeting while standing with a hand on his hip.
The black-haired man acknowledges his junior's help covering his segment, but the junior jokingly suggests he might just take over the position permanently.
The black-haired man looks at him with a cold and unimpressed expression.
He bluntly reminds his junior that he lacks the seniority required to manage 2 news programs at once.
The light-haired man reacts with visible frustration and sweat, asking if he can't take a joke.
While the black-haired man reflects on Bang Gyun-jong's persistent inferiority complex, the junior realizes he cannot compete with the star anchor.
Bang Gyun-jong walks away with a dismissive wave, telling the anchor to take it easy.
He stops to whisper a cryptic warning about watching out for fires, leaving the anchor confused about his true intentions.
The anchor enters an office where an older man in a brown suit asks if he is feeling better, which he confirms. The older man introduces staff from the entertainment division, including a PD named Park Min-soo.
The anchor introduces himself as Yoon Se-hyun from the news bureau.
Se-hyun observes the director's serious expression and suspects that the visit from the entertainment division brings bad news.
When Se-hyun asks about their purpose, the PD explains they are currently filming a documentary. The PD requests Yoon Se-hyun to serve as the reporter for the project, which the anchor initially thinks seems manageable.
The director interjects that the assignment is far from simple, prompting Se-hyun to ask for clarification.
He is informed that the project is a Team K documentary and he will be required to return to the dungeon.
Se-hyun is stunned by the news while the director complains about the task, but the PD insists they have no other choice.
The PD explains that they did not expect Team K to specifically demand Yoon Se-hyun as their reporter. He highlights the rarity of this opportunity given Team K's government affiliation and their usual absence from variety shows.
The PD pleads for his help just this once while Se-hyun rubs his temple in deep distress.
The anchor remembers the cryptic warning about fires that Bang Gyun-jong whispered to him earlier. He realizes with a shock exactly what his junior was referring to with that ominous comment.
A traumatic memory of a monstrous rabbit in a dungeon flashes through his mind as the PD mentions one more detail.
The PD reveals that Kang Hara has joined Team K, which causes Se-hyun to repeat her name in surprise.
He recalls a past moment when she timidly asked him if he would go out with her and wonders if she requested him for the job.
He quickly dismisses the thought, believing she isn't the type of person to make such a request. He wonders if the girl he remembers as being timid managed to become an S-class hunter to join the team.
He remembers her bravery in the past when she reached out to save him, admitting he wouldn't be here without her. Back in the present, he remains confused about how an E-class hunter could have joined such an elite team.
The director speculates it might be a ride-along rather than full membership, leaving the anchor in deep thought.
When the director asks if he knows anything, Se-hyun declines to discuss it, stating the information is off the record.
Convinced there is more to the situation, Se-hyun decides to officially accept the documentary assignment.
The director is pleased by the news, while the PD expresses his gratitude to the anchor.
The director notes that his decision saved the entertainment division and praises his diligence and loyalty to the company.
The director suggests he take a longer break from the news and let Bang Gyun-jong continue filling in, catching Se-hyun off guard.
Se-hyun firmly requests that they assign any anchor other than Bang Gyun-jong to the position.
The director agrees to comply with his request and wishes him success with the upcoming documentary.
The director comments on the topical nature of the project while Se-hyun thoughtfully repeats the word. Se-hyun prepares to leave the office as the director bids him farewell.
The older man tells him to give his regards to his father as he watches him go. The anchor asks if the director truly understands the meaning of his previous statement. Yoon Se-hyun walks away with a grim and contemplative expression.
A hand maintains a firm, tight, quack-sounding grip on the thumb.
Yoon Se-hyun walks away down a silent, brightly lit hallway.
The blonde-haired man introduces Kang Hara to the rest of the group, announcing that she will be joining their team for the time being.
The blue-haired woman looks skeptical and asks why they are being gathered if it isn't for the Sangam dungeon raid.
The blonde-haired man explains that the raid is on hold for a while due to an upcoming broadcast shoot.
The black-haired woman reflects on the fact that even elite S-rank hunters seem to dread their work lives. Standing beside the flustered woman, the blonde-haired man invites the team to ask any questions they might have.
The blue-haired woman asks if Hara has joined because she underwent a second awakening. The black-haired woman clarifies that she hasn't awakened further but has simply acquired a few new skills. The blue-haired woman is impressed by the news as a system window identifies her as A-rank hunter Lee Ray Young, a teleporter.
The blonde-haired man reveals his plan to take the team to the Unyang D-rank dungeon to film a documentary alongside the new member.
He turns his attention to the blue-haired woman and the pink-haired man, addressing them by their names.
He assigns several team members to the dungeon and instructs everyone to gather at the office by 6 in the morning the following Monday. The blonde-haired man laughs heartily while the black-haired woman stands beside him with a bewildered expression.
The pink-haired man wearing sunglasses agrees to meet with the leader privately for a moment.
Back in the office, the blonde-haired man asks if the custom weapon he ordered for the new member is ready.
The pink-haired man confidently presents his work as a system window identifies him as A-rank hunter Kim Seong-bok, a production-type hunter. The black-haired woman recalls a past promise where the enthusiastic hunter vowed to craft a lightsaber just for her. He hands her a sleek metal cylinder and lets out a soft, satisfied hee-hee sounding laugh, explaining the design is meant to keep her skills secret.
The blonde-haired man notes the device looks like a toy, but the creator protests that it was designed in a trendy, modern style.
She activates the handle, causing a vibrant purple beam to erupt with a sharp electronic jing-sounding flare.
A system window displays the official name of the new equipment as the Coolness Storm Sword at.
The black-haired woman finds the name incredibly embarrassing, but the pink-haired man insists she has no sense of what is truly cool.
The blonde-haired man admits that his teammate always chooses such names and shows off his own specialized gauntlet. He looks down at his gauntlet with a resigned expression as its system name is revealed to be totally blocking A.
He mentions the embarrassment of listing such gear on official reports while the pink-haired man boasts about his superior level of taste.
The black-haired woman holds her new sword and asks if it is truly all right to receive such high-quality gear without paying for the materials. The pink-haired man suggests a trade, asking her to join him in a cosplay event for next Halloween as payment.
He prepares to depart for the week, but the blonde-haired man quickly stops him with a confused look.
The blonde-haired man announces that their specialized training sessions will be starting immediately that very day.
He insists that the black-haired woman must train daily until the dungeon raid begins, while his teammate eagerly offers to help. Exhausted from the intense training, the woman stumbles through her front door while complaining about her aching body.
She dreads the upcoming daily sessions and wonders if simply going to a regular job would have been less painful.
As she enters, she hears the rapid tack-tack sounding of a keyboard and a frustrated shout coming from the living room.
She announces her arrival to her brother, Hara, who remains glued to his game, and asks her to make him some ramen.
She stares at him with visible irritation, thinking that he acts as though he is completely helpless. A pot of noodles simmers on the stovetop with a rhythmic boggle-boggle sounding bubble.
She brings the cooked meal into the room as a loud electronic pick-pick sounding alert goes off just as her mother arrives home. Her mother sighs and questions why the siblings are eating ramen so close to their scheduled dinner time.
The mother places a shopping bag on the counter and scolds the brown-haired man for failing to eat a proper meal all day.
The siblings bicker over his gaming habits while the mother listens to his excuses with her arms crossed. The older woman expresses her frustration with both of them and warns the black-haired woman not to overexert herself after being discharged.
The woman stares blankly as she contemplates her current financial situation.
She recalls the massive sum of 10 million won that she recently received from the blonde-haired man.
She looks through her shopping bag and wonders if she should give the remaining money to her mother.
Inside the bag are several pastries and treats intended for her friend's parents.
Her brother complains about her eating without him while she focuses on her own meal.
He claims he was calling her for some time, but she insists that she didn't hear his voice at all.
He smirks and tells her that her ears must be clogged as he continues to eat.
The siblings share a brief moment of quiet as they finish their snacks together in the kitchen.
The brown-haired man eats noodles while muttering a vague complaint.
The black-haired woman tells herself to keep her cool during the meal. She remembers a specific detail about the Minjin party from that day.
On the television, Yoon Se-yeon reports on critical political negotiations between parties. Watching the news, she worries about her expression when they meet soon.
She compares her own nervous face to the anchor's professional appearance. Her brother praises the anchor's looks, causing her a sudden Deal Kyung sounding start.
She makes up a lie about a mosquito after he questions her. He touches his forehead and mentions having a favor to ask her. The brown-haired man asks for help, making her look incredibly suspicious. He asks to borrow 5 million won, shocking her mid-meal.
She stares at him in complete disbelief. He pleads for the money, but she flatly refuses his request. She accuses him of wanting money for a hairline transplant procedure. He argues that his looks are vital for flight attendant job interviews.
They argue over his career choices and his physical appearance across the table.
He begs again, bringing up the maturity of her personal savings account.
He admits that he wants her dungeon compensation money for himself.
Her hand hits the table with a sharp tax-sounding slap. She scolds him for being unsupportive during her recent hospital stay.
She stands up and firmly denies him any financial help whatsoever.
Their mother enters the room, asking why they are fighting over food.
Hara complains to his mom, but she simply praises his current looks.
The brown-haired man looks away annoyed.
He asks his mother who looks better for a job interview.
From the living room, the mother gives a blunt and dismissive answer.
She remains speechless as Hara continues to eat her noodles. Later, the woman sighs while drying her hair with a towel.
Her mother calls her name as she stands in the hallway.
The older woman tells Hara to lend the compensation money to Hara.
Hara refuses, explaining she needs the funds for her own independence.
Her mother mocks her independence and warns about potential social basset.
She promises Hara will pay it back, which Hara deeply doubts.
The mother vows to ensure repayment as Hara reflects on her manipulations.
Hara argues that Hara's problems are his own, angering her mother. The older woman calls her stingy for not helping her family.
She complains about her own work fatigue and the family stress.
Hara grits her teeth with a sharp P-dick-sounding creak.
She retreats to her room as her mother watches her go.
Her mother dismisses the issue while Hara remains in silent resentment.
She wonders why her mother is always so harsh.
Her phone starts a rhythmic jing-sounding vibration on the table.
The screen identifies the incoming call from her colleague, Senior Yoojung.
Yoojung discusses the section chief taking leave for post-dungeon syndrome.
Yoojung expresses how much she misses Hara while Hara complains about Hara. The senior makes a joke about her husband, bringing a laugh to Hara.
When asked about her return, Hara struggles with telling the truth.
She remembers the team leader's order to keep her training secret. A drink can falls with a sudden Deal Kyung-sounding clatter.
The blonde-haired man reassures her about the difficult decision she made.
The blonde-haired man suggests that everyone will eventually try to get on Hara's good side. She looks skeptical and asks if they will really try to look good for her.
Crossing his arms with a smile, the blonde-haired man confirms that people's attitudes shift depending on a hunter's rank.
Hara holds her phone and explains to her coworker that it is currently difficult for her to return to work due to vague circumstances.
Her senior laments that life will be boring without her before hanging up abruptly to attend to her husband. Looking at her phone with concern, Hara wonders if people would truly understand her or change their attitudes if she became an S-rank hunter. She thinks of the news anchor and wonders if he would also change the way he treats her.
Collapsing onto her bed, Hara admits that she cannot become an S-rank anyway, and sighs over the constellation, choosing someone who is already in a relationship.
A system window appears as Hara stares blankly, showing the constellation Cupid's fear that she might die while stuck as an E-rank hunter.
Cupid's message continues, explaining that it wants her to experience the true fear of living an E-rank life.
The scene shifts to the towering modern skyscrapers of Sejong City under a clear blue sky.
The blonde-haired man enters a sleek, contemporary building as he is greeted by staff.
Standing in a black button-down shirt, the blonde-haired man maintains a calm and patient expression.
A hand waves from a distance to grab his attention while a woman calls him over to her table.
The woman is identified as Hunter Agency Deputy Chief Park Young-hee, and she notes that he has arrived late.
As they sit at a table filled with fresh seafood, he explains that he finally has some free time at this hour.
Chief Park suggests that they continue the conversation they were having earlier.
A dialogue bubble appears in the minimalist space as she brings up the subject of the half-formed S-rank hunter, King Hara.
The blonde-haired man listens intently while picking up a piece of food with his chopsticks. He laughs and mentions how ridiculous the situation sounded when he first heard about it, noting it isn't a dating show.
He remarks that his life is laughable enough, while the chief insists that he actually has a pretty great life.
His expression turns serious as he expresses his frustration that Yoon Se-yeon is involved in the matter once again.
Chief Park leans on her hand and speculates that Councilman Yoon would be very unhappy if he found out his son was involved with Hara.
They discuss how Lee Eun-ju is trying to act like a good boss, despite the fact that hunters have died under her command in the past.
Chief Park notices his fatigue and asks if he stayed up all night working again.
He explains that the director was causing a fuss and notes that actual fieldwork is often chaotic and exhausting.
Leaning in with a sly grin, Chief Park asks him if he plans to behave and live a quiet life from now on.
He stares back with a cold, determined gaze before suggesting that they should cause one big accident instead. A system window identifies Chief Park Young-hee as the powerful de facto mistress of the Hunter Agency headquarters.
A flashback reveals the agency is divided between high-rank dungeon deployments for S-rank down to C-rank hunters.
Hara is seen working at a busy desk, representing the division that provides civilian support for D-rank and E-rank hunters. A narration box explains that Chief Park's high position as an E-rank hunter proves she is a ruthless woman who will use any means to get what she wants.
The blonde-haired man asks what she is scheming this time and questions why she suddenly likes people who cause accidents.
She laughs off his question and claims she was just joking, calling him far too serious. He simply agrees and continues his meal as she tells him to finish eating quickly.
She looks at him with a mysterious smile as she remembers one more thing she needs to say.
Appearing in a simplified style, the blonde-haired man looks confused when she tells him to grab some donuts from her car trunk.
She explains that she is tired of the donuts her secretary's husband brings every day, so he happily offers to take them.
Chief Park tells him not to starve himself on a diet, but he argues that he must manage his weight to keep his promotional video views high.
She scolds him for worrying about views when his hair is a mess, and he jokingly compares her nagging to his mother's.
She finds his comment creepy since she isn't married and reaches for her phone to make a call.
She calls Councilman Yoon while the blonde-haired man watches her with a silent, expectant expression.
He remains quiet as she greets the councilman and mentions it has been a long time since they last spoke.
She assures the councilman that the matter isn't serious, while the blonde-haired man's hand hits the table with a sharp tack-sounding tap.
He announces his departure and waves goodbye while she reminds him one last time to take the donuts.
He bows respectfully and promises to see her again soon.
Standing outside alone, the blonde-haired man looks away with a neutral and thoughtful expression.
A woman in a dark suit addresses him as a hunter and asks him to follow her toward a car.
The trunk of the black sedan opens with a sharp, electronic deal Kyong-sounding clatter.
The secretary presents a box of donuts and confirms it is the specific item he was entrusted with.
The blonde-haired man accepts the box and expresses his gratitude.
The secretary wishes him a safe return as she bows respectfully.
Inside the taxi, the blonde-haired man gives his destination while the driver notes the long distance.
The blonde-haired man confirms his suspicion as he looks down at the gift.
Finding large mana crystals instead of food, he reflects on the predictability of the bribe.
He contemplates causing an incident while anticipating his eventual return to the capital.
Narration explains the elite structure of the Hunter Agency and highlights the fame of Gunwook's Team K.
As people at a bus stop check their phones, the narrator notes that Bo-Ki manages the team's social media presence. On social media, the pink-haired man teases a new member and promotes upcoming team merchandise.
Online comments show fans speculating about potential roster changes and rumored filming schedules.
The scene shifts to the lush, rocky landscapes surrounding the Anyang dungeon.
Looking at her phone, the black-haired woman with glasses appears visibly distressed.
She remembers the pink-haired man's empty reassurances and resents him for deceiving her. The blonde-haired man approaches and calls out to her as she continues to tremble.
Gunwook attempts to soothe her nerves by reminding her of the training she completed.
Appearing in a simplified style, she admits she only knows how to flee while he validates that skill as essential.
She questions her readiness due to her lack of skills, but he firmly reassures her. He clarifies that their specific objective for this mission does not involve actually clearing the dungeon.
They look on as the news crew and anchor Yoon Se-hyun prepare for their broadcast. Yoon Se-hyun maintains a focused and professional expression while on the field. A flashback to the previous day shows a tense family dinner at the anchor's home.
His father asks if he has recently spoken with the deputy chief of the Hunter Agency.
The older man clarifies that he is referring to the powerful Deputy Chief Park Young-hee.
The black-haired man flatly denies ever having met the woman.
He questions the motive behind the inquiry, but his father dismisses the subject entirely.
His father mentions a previously discussed arranged marriage, causing a sudden Myeom-chis-sounding pause.
He rejects the pressure to marry while his father unexpectedly tells him to forget the matchmaker.
Surprised by the sudden change in tone, he listens as his father grants him romantic freedom.
He remains silent as his father begins to state a final, significant condition.
The father warns him to only choose a partner who is useful to the family.
He wonders if this cold, pragmatic view is why his father treated his mother so poorly.
He remembers a dark moment from the past when his father harshly demanded his mother's belongings be removed.
He angrily confronts his father about his lifelong neglect and failure to notice his own child's struggles. His hand drops a spoon with a sharp tack-sounding clatter as he announces his immediate departure.
He tells his father to only communicate via text while the older man yells at him to stay.
He continues to walk away while his father hurls insults from the dinner table.
Back in the present, the anchor appears exhausted as he reflects on his father's cruel words.
Hara watches from a distance as the black-haired man prepares for the camera. Observing him closely, she notes that the anchor looks extremely drained.
She nervously contemplates the best way to greet him after their previous awkward encounter.
She formally introduces herself and he politely acknowledges that it has been a long time.
An awkward, silent tension hangs between them as they stand in the forest.
He offers professional encouragement to help her manage the difficulty of being on camera.
A staff member interrupts to coordinate a script check, and the anchor agrees to follow.
He says goodbye until the filming starts, leaving her alone for a moment. A hand rests on her shoulder as a voice asks if she is feeling nervous.
Hara admits her anxiety to Gun-wook, attributing it to her first broadcast experience.
Gun-wook hints that there might be a different reason for her visible distress.
Laughing with a sudden, tough-sounding slap, he teases her about her feelings for the anchor. She frantically tells him to be quiet while he playfully defends his integrity.
Standing in a lush forest, Gun-wook insists that their previous conversation was confidential.
The blue-haired girl asks for clarification on what he is hiding.
Gun-wook dismissively pats Rae-young on the head while teasing her for being late.
He presents a large gift box, claiming his delay was due to picking up the requested donuts.
Observing from the side, Hara worries about the excessive workload being placed on others.
Gun-wook ignores Rae-young's apology, bluntly stating that he wasn't addressing her.
Rae-young grows frustrated, resenting his tendency to cause trouble for innocent people. With a smug grin, Gun-wook warns Hara to keep her distance from the shady blue-haired girl.
Hara remains conflicted, acknowledging Gun-wook's help while fearing the consequences of her sister's words.
A staff member's call for a script check interrupts their tense interaction.
Hara excuses herself to prepare for the shoot as Rae-young watches her leave.
Alone now, Rae-young confronts Gun-wook about the box being filled with stones instead of food.
She questions his intentions for the hidden items, warning him against causing an incident during the broadcast.
Rae-young expresses skepticism about needing high-rank mana stones for such a low-rank dungeon.
Her hand hits the side of the box with a sharp tack-sounding tap as she demands to know his plan.
Gun-wook feigns innocence to dodge her suspicions, but she responds with a cold, lethal threat.
He admits his cautiousness is a necessity, claiming these items are his only protection against the unknown.
A production assistant calls the crew to readiness as the filming officially begins.
The clapperboard shuts with a sharp tack-sounding clap, signaling the start of the scene.
Inside the glowing blue dungeon, Anchor Yoon interviews Hara about her awakening and first mission.
Speaking into the OBC microphone, Hara explains how Team K is supporting her adaptation training.
Anchor Yoon recalls the day they were both caught in a dungeon gate during a previous shoot.
He notes her increased comfort on camera, which she attributes to his relaxing presence.
Hara is surprised when the anchor confesses that he was genuinely concerned for her well-being.
He mentions how visibly terrified she seemed during their last encounter at the television station.
Anchor Yoon offers her a way out if the pressure becomes too overwhelming, touching Hara's heart.
Determined to prove her growth, Hara confidently offers a demonstration of her new abilities.
White wings sprout from her back as she takes flight with a sudden swish-sounding movement.
Hovering gracefully, she displays a mana crystal while asking for the anchor's professional opinion.
Anchor Yoon praises her natural performance before a staff member catches his eye.
From behind the camera, a man directs the anchor to press her for more information.
A handwritten sign prompts the anchor to ask deeper questions regarding her specific skills.
As Anchor Yoon asks if she has other powers, Rae-young arrives with a heavy Daeobuk-sounding step.
Carrying a dead monster, Rae-young interrupts the interview to prevent Hara from revealing confidential data.
She explains that she just finished hunting a creature that was wandering too close to the set.
Rae-young emphasizes the importance of safety despite the dungeon's low rank.
The director calls for a meal break, ending the morning's filming session.
Anchor Yoon looks on thoughtfully as the crew begins to wrap up their equipment.
Hara's hands carefully inspect the glowing blue crystal she found during her training.
She gratefully offers the Mana Stone to Anchor Yoon as a token of her appreciation.
The anchor accepts the gift with a polite and humble dismissal of her thanks.
Rae-young blows a bubblegum bubble and casually reclaims the stone for the government.
Anchor Yoon questions if she intended to keep it, but she flatly denies any such plan.
Looking toward the rest of the group, the anchor remarks on the close bond shared by Team K. He observes Gun-wook leaning intimately toward Hara even during their downtime.
Rae-young sighs at the familiar sight of the two hunters interacting so closely.
She warns the anchor that Gun-wook's friendly demeanor is often just an act to win people over.
Rae-young advises him to simply ignore the blonde hunter's habitual flirting.
Gun-wook instructs Hara to scan the fallen werewolf using a specific historical date.
Looking down at the dead monster, Hara prepares to test the new method he suggested.
Within the luminous blue depths of the dungeon, Gun-wook stands beside Hara and observes that he can only perceive the rank of their surroundings. Motioning toward a defeated monster, Gun-wook suggests that Hara use the opportunity to practice her combat skills by slicing it, causing her to react with a startled gasp. Hara looks on with concern, noting that the rest of the team is currently resting and worrying about the potential mess if blood were to splatter nearby.
Gun-wook leans in closely and encourages her with a playful tone, persisting in his request for her to try the move just once. In a stylized and flustered moment, Hara becomes dizzy and overwhelmed by his proximity, mentally shouting that he is standing much too close.
A firm command to stop suddenly cuts through the air, causing Hara to look up with wide, surprised eyes.
A strong hand reaches out and intercepts Gunwook's arm with a sudden, firm, syuk-sounding grasp.
Anchor Yoon Se-hyun intervenes in the interaction, bluntly stating that pressuring and egging her on is a poor display of behavior.
Recognizing the newcomer, Gunwook casually acknowledges the anchor as he begins to step back from the confrontation.
Switching to a more friendly demeanor, Gunwook enthusiastically shakes the anchor's hands and expresses deep gratitude for the interview. Yoon Se-hyun politely returns the thanks for the filming opportunity while privately noting to himself that the blonde hunter is certainly no pushover.
The anchor confronts Gunwook about his earlier claim that low-rank monsters are harmless, questioning why he was suddenly pressuring Hara to attack one.
Gunwook shrugs off the suspicion with a nonchalant smile, claiming that one can never truly predict what might happen in a dungeon.
Yoon Se-hyun remains skeptical, silently repeating the hunter's vague reasoning about unexpected occurrences.
He challenges the hunter further, suggesting that such a cautious and weak statement is unfitting for someone of his prestigious S-rank status.
Gunwook lets out a small laugh and admits that being addressed so directly is making him feel embarrassed once again.
Declaring it is time for a break, Yoon Se-hyun announces his intention to go find something to eat as he turns to leave.
Gunwook invites the anchor to join them for a meal and some conversation, but Yoon Se-hyun offers a polite refusal and continues walking.
Walking away into the shadows of the cave, the anchor reflects on his decision to interfere and wonders what could have prompted his sudden protective instinct.
His departure is halted by a sudden Myeomchit-sounding pause as Hara calls out his full name from behind.
Hara runs up to catch his attention, and he stops to ask her if there is something specific she wants to discuss.
He assumes she is looking for the Mana Stone that was already returned to the government, but Hara quickly clarifies that it is something different.
Hara looks down at the ground and hesitates, struggling to voice the words she wants to say as she remains visibly nervous.
Gathering her courage, Hara stands directly before the anchor and reveals that she has something she wants to give him personally.